Now, as we do so many weeks here at the Daily Dose, we need to get to our Daily Dose top 5. You know, somehow, and I don't even fully understand how, young Cincinnati Bengals quarterback Joe Burrow led the Bengals all the way to the Super Bowl this year. In just his second season, Burrow has already done what only 2 other quarterbacks in that franchise's history have done. Joey B is now in the company of Kenny Anderson, who, by the way, should be an NFL Hall of Famer. What he did with the Bengals is nothing short of incredible. And he's also in the company of one Boomer Esiason. Now, Esiason is not exactly in that Hall of Fame class, but he was very good and he was insanely tough. Unfortunately, like Kenny Anderson and like Boomer Esiason, Joe Burrow's Super Bowl ended in an almost win. Like they were close, but they didn't quite come up with the victory. But you know, Burrow isn't the first young quarterback to go all the way to the Super Bowl and then come up short. I mean, big deal. So he didn't win it all this year. He's just going to go back again, right? Well, not so fast. Because here's the thing. It isn't easy to get to the Super Bowl. It's really, really tough. Every single team out there is trying to make it to the Super Bowl. But it's even tougher when you look at what you have to face year in and year out. I mean, you look at the AFC right now. You've got Josh Allen. You've got Patrick Mahomes. You've got Justin Herbert. You've got Lamar Jackson. Plus, there are some really good teams. I mean, you think of teams like the Tennessee Titans. They're really good. They just need a good quarterback. And they'd be right there contending too. Well, today, our Daily Dose Top 5 is counting down 5 very good quarterbacks that got to a Super Bowl and lost. And we all thought, okay, well, who cares? They're going to get back. But they never did make it back. And we're hoping that's not the case for one Joe Burrow. Let's go ahead and jump in. We start off at number 5 with a guy that changed NFL history. But maybe not quite in the way that he had hoped he would change NFL history. This guy was drafted by the New England Patriots with the first overall pick back in 1993. He had it all. He was big. He was strong. He was smart. He could make all of the throws. He had a pretty good surrounding cast. In just his 4th NFL season, he led the Patriots to the Super Bowl. Unfortunately, when they got there, they were beaten by the Green Bay Packers. This was Super Bowl 31. But I mean, big deal. Quarterback Drew Bledsoe, he's only 24 years old. He's going to go back probably multiple times. Drew Bledsoe was the youngest player in NFL history to actually be elected to a Pro Bowl. He had a good team. He had a good coach. And yet, that wasn't how his career would go. Drew Bledsoe was always good, just not quite great. And in 2001, he suffered a brutal hit and had a really, really bad injury. And in relief, the New England Patriots would send in a young, unknown quarterback by the name of Tom Brady. And of course, Brady would go on to win all kinds of Super Bowls with Drew Bledsoe as his backup. Now, Bledsoe would eventually leave. He would go to Buffalo. He would later go to Dallas. But after that first Super Bowl, Drew Bledsoe never reached those same heights again. And for that, today he comes in at number 5. We arrive next at number 4, and we reach a quarterback that came into the league again with a lot of fanfare. But it took a little while for him to kind of take over. But 4 years in, he took the league by storm. He carried his team all the way to the Super Bowl. He had won the Heisman Trophy in college and was selected with the number 1 pick of the 2011 NFL Draft. This guy was so big. He was so strong. And sometimes he could throw it accurately, just not all the time. But you had to account for him on every single play. In 2015, Cam Newton led the Carolina Panthers to Super Bowl 50. He had been named the league's MVP that year. The Panthers had racked up a 15-1 record, and Cam Newton had accounted for 45 touchdowns passing and running. But then in the Super Bowl, he was kind of terrorized by that Denver Broncos defense. Pass rusher Von Miller had a field day, and the Broncos beat Newton and the Panthers in Super Bowl 50. And honestly, since that game, and maybe even going to the next year and that opener against the Broncos, Cam Newton was never the same again. He had taken so many big hits. He had taken big hits to his head. And he had an injured shoulder. He couldn't throw the ball very far. He couldn't throw the ball very accurately. Cam has played a little bit in the last few seasons, but he's been largely below average. And even though he has yelled at us, he's back, what has been back is basically poor quarterback play. It certainly doesn't look like Cam Newton is ever going to get a chance to get back to another Super Bowl. And for that reason, Cam Newton comes in today at number 4. Next up, we reach number 3, and we get to a guy that has racked up some incredible passing statistics in his career. Get this, in his career, this guy has passed for nearly 60,000 yards and 367 touchdowns. That is amazing in any era. Drafted with the 3rd overall pick of the 2008 NFL Draft, it took Matt Ryan a little bit of time to get the Atlanta Falcons to a Super Bowl level. But then they did. In infamous fashion, unfortunately. In 2016, Matt Ryan led the Atlanta Falcons to Super Bowl 51 against the New England Patriots. And hey, let's not forget, Matt Ryan was pretty good in that game. For a while. I mean, the Falcons led the game 28-3 in the second half, but then they couldn't get any points. They couldn't get any first downs when they needed them, and the New England Patriots came back to win the game 34-28. Well, I mean, even though Matt Ryan had been in the league a few years, he was only 31 in that Super Bowl. He could get the Falcons back to another Super Bowl, right? Yeah, it hasn't happened. In fact, since 2016, the Atlanta Falcons are just 35-46. And honestly, when you watch them, they don't show any signs of being a Super Bowl contender anytime soon. See, here's the thing that we forget so much in football, because we love to heap that praise on the quarterback. We love to give that quarterback all the credit. But there are 21 other guys out there playing. It's not just them, winning or losing. It's not just them. Matt Ryan hasn't gotten the Falcons back to the Super Bowl since. He got them there once, but he didn't win it. And for that, Matt Ryan comes in today on our list at number 3. At number 2, we have a guy that took a lot of heat from his hometown fans. Now, some of that was because at times he could be a little bit inconsistent. And also some of that is because all the time, his fan base is a bunch of crazy people. But this guy did produce, and he produced in the postseason, which is really, really important. Our number 2 entry has won 9 playoff games. He took his team to the playoffs 7 of the 8 years that he started more than 10 games. He won at least one playoff game 6 of those 8 years, and he reached the NFC Championship game 5 different times. Do you realize that every eligible quarterback who's won at least 9 postseason games is already enshrined in Canton? Now, this guy was drafted number 2 overall in 1999 by the Philadelphia Eagles, but Donovan McNabb was a starter for 10 seasons. And in that time, he averaged 9 wins and just 4.5 losses. Keep this in mind. During that decade, only Peyton Manning, Brett Favre, and Tom Brady won more games than Donovan McNabb did. Now, it wasn't like those Eagles teams were just stocked with talent, especially on offense. I mean, he only had Terrell Owens for like a year and a half. And the rest of the time, he was throwing to guys named like Todd Pinkston and Reggie Brown and James Thrash. But somehow in 2004, when Donovan McNabb was only 28 years old, he took the Eagles to the Super Bowl. They were beaten by Tom Brady and those New England Patriots. Again, he's going to get back, right? Well, it wasn't that easy. I mean, in the NFC at the time, McNabb had to battle Eli Manning, Kurt Warner, Brad Johnson, and a really good Tampa defense, Jake Delhomme and the Carolina Panthers, Drew Brees and the New Orleans Saints. He made it to the Bowl one time, and Donovan McNabb lost, and he never made it back again. And Donovan McNabb comes in today at number 2. So we reach our number 1 quarterback that made it to the Super Bowl, then lost, and never made it back. And we get to a quarterback that, despite the fact he didn't win the Super Bowl, I would still put him in the conversation for greatest quarterbacks ever. Why? Because I have eyes, my friends. I have eyes. He wasn't drafted in 1983 by the Miami Dolphins until the 27th pick. But remember, that was in what is widely considered the greatest quarterback draft class ever. But right off the bat, you could tell Dan Marino is special. He was so good. He had that quick delivery. He had a very, very sharp mind. He had a bigger arm than I think anyone ever gives him credit for. In just his second season, Dan Marino began rewriting the record book. In 1984, his second year in the league, Dan Marino threw for over 5,000 yards and 48 touchdowns. Remember, that wasn't in this 7-on-7 era. That was back in the era of no defensive holding, hitting the quarterbacks low is not illegal, hitting wide receivers pretty much anywhere you wanted wasn't illegal. Do whatever you want. The defense had free reign. But in just year 2, Dan Marino led the Dolphins to Super Bowl 19 against the San Francisco 49ers. Montana versus Marino. This is going to be incredible. Except Marino really didn't have that great of a surrounding cast. After jumping out to an early lead in Super Bowl 19, the Miami Dolphins would get crushed by the Niners 38-16. And at the time, we all thought what we're thinking right now with Joe Burrow. I mean, who cares? Dan Marino was only 23 years old. That's 2 years younger than Joe Burrow is now. Dan Marino is going to go to a ton of Super Bowls. He's probably going to win a couple. Except he never got back. The Miami Dolphins made it to the postseason 8 more times under Marino. They even advanced to the AFC Championship game twice. But Marino was beaten once by Tony Eason and once by Jim Kelly. Hey, it is hard to get to a Super Bowl. Every single team in the NFL starts off their season with the same goal. Get to the Super Bowl. Get to the Super Bowl. We want to win the Super Bowl. We all want to do it. Everybody wants to do it. And they are the best of the best of the best of the best. When you think about it, if you're in a loaded conference like Joe Burrow is now, with all those great quarterbacks, I mean, what separates your team? What makes you that much better? It is so difficult. I know that right now, after this 2021 NFL season, we're all kind of penciling in Joe Burrow for a few more shots at the title, and hopefully that happens, because I really like that kid. He is really, really fun to watch. I love the way he carries himself. But as our Daly Dose Top 5 shows today, it is not that easy at all. Okay, YouTube, make sure you go over and you check out the rest of the podcast. This week on The Dose, we have some news stories we're talking. We have some college basketball, some college football. We have some NBA to talk. But then we are handing out some end-of-year NFL awards. We hand out Rookie of the Year, Coach of the Year, Most Valuable Player, Least Valuable Player, a few other awards that you're going to want to make sure you check out. So be sure you go out and you check out the rest of the podcast. I will leave a link here in the comments on YouTube for you. Hope y'all are doing well. I will see you all next Wednesday. Have a great week.